All right, looks like we're moving on to Art. Hey, Art, how are you?
Hello there. Good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Been enjoying the show despite the technical issues, but good job. This is amazing.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple technical issues. Well, number one, we lost our host, which the Mango Magic always flows through Isaac. So inspiring to try to take his back, his essence of how he would interview. But Art, we appreciate you joining, and we're going to go through we're in hour 9, almost 9.5. So it's pretty exciting. So Art, tell us a little bit about yeah, it is. It feels like it for sure. Art, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. The company is Team Sales Development, and we focus on helping selling teams achieve more annual recurring revenue or total contract value by focusing on client success, and specifically focusing on the buying process and drilling down one layer deeper, how sales and pre-sales can work together better. So this is the idea about the team sales idea, and it's very much at the opportunity level or at the account level, how sales and pre-sales can work together better. So that's a series of workshops and other offerings.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. So when you talk about customer success, or that framework, how do you define success? Like, what do you find that to be important in the sales process?
Well, sure. I mean, many of us have been around for a while, as you can tell, back to the day where when you sold something, you sold a physical thing, even if it was a piece of, if it was software, it was delivering the CD with the software on it, or delivering some kind of item. And the sale concluded basically at that point because you had fulfilled what they wanted, and now they had what they thought they needed, and it was up to them to implement it. So client success looked different back in the day because it was largely up to the client to use their stuff accordingly. And there might have been, of course, professional services or other things like that that would help them out. But the sales part of it was pretty much done at the point of the sale. And then it's like, if you don't use it, well, that's too bad. But, I'm going to go on to the next sale. And I'm being a little bit, over exaggerating.
It's a little truthful, but exaggerated, but truthful.
Hey, shelfware was not it was a known thing where people bought stuff and it stayed on the shelf. So why is that different now? Because client success right now really is what starts at the sale. Once they say that they, are signed up, that's where the job is to make sure that whatever they've gotten is actually going to work. And that is measured by, oftentimes, of course, a consumption model, a licensing model, where sales doesn't even get paid until the client is using the service or the application or whatever the case is. And you can see many, many companies going this direction. Just recently, Broadcom took over VMware and, from my understanding, changed all of the licenses that might have been a perpetual license into a renewable license and some things like that. And don't quote me on those details, but the point is it shifted much more to consumption. So client success now has to be defined as what is the client doing that's actually helping them to fulfill whatever business goals that they have in mind. And why that's important is because we no longer are trying to get to a sale. I've kind of coined a new term. What I call it is commitment to consume. So the sale doesn't end at the sale. The success doesn't end at the sale. It's committing to consume, to move forward so that client is actually using it. And my philosophy is it goes along with so many of the other speakers. I saw Eric earlier talking about working backwards from business outcomes to what you need to try to offer. Danny was talking about the buyer being done way far in their process before they even engage sales. Steve was talking about the idea of SDRs and so forth, and even Matthew talking about qualifying out. So why is this significant? Because if the end in mind is client success to get them to consume so that we can get our commissions, basically our annual recurring revenue bonuses, that means we need to think about it from hello. And so the idea of team sales is from hello. And I don't care if hello is a person or an automated service, or in the case of many Mangos, the AI that was participating in my Demo Fest presentation that I gave that I didn't even realize it was an AI that was participating as many mangoes way prior to even engaging me. So I knew a lot about many mangoes before Isaac and I talked. And since then, I've come to learn what that whole process is. So from hello through client success, everybody's got to be focused on that. And it's all got to be about the buyer's journey. Yes, we have a sales process, but our sales process has to be guided by that journey. So long
Yeah,
answer.
no, they have to align, right? Like that, they have to align with that buyer's journey and your sales process. And if there's a misalignment, sorry, there's some noise on. Anyway, that's a problem. So tell me a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more about that. Through that process that you have.
So it's very. What I find, and by the way, I deliver workshops and I work with companies with both pre-sales and sales. My background is that I've been both. I've done both roles. I was a customer prior to that, so I experienced the enterprise information management, very complex sales because I was on the buying side of that. And then I was in sales and sales management roles, implementing the most complex sales that you can think of. And now I support, for the last 25 years, clients who have extremely complex sales, supply chain, electronic manufacturing, all that. What I find interesting is that there's a lot of pieces that are broken in this overall mechanism that has to happen. And for example, I think if a salesperson is thinking about anything, they are thinking about the sales process. And frankly, that's a good start because very often the process itself isn't even thought about. The process is supposed to be implemented in a CRM system, and most salespeople hate CRM systems because it does them no good. It's mainly for the purpose of management. So right there we have a disconnect because even the sales process that should be helping us isn't seen as something that's attractive. Now take that one level further, and if we're supposed to be focusing on the buyer process, that means that we need to figure out where is the buyer in their journey, and what does that mean for us, and how do we help them through their journey while at the same time working through our sales process. I do an interesting little experiment in one of my workshops. I talk about both of these and I describe the buyer and the seller process. And then I tell everybody on the call, I say, okay, where do you get engaged? And I tell them, make sure you name you talk about the stage name. So I want to know what stage name do you get engaged? And right up on the screen is the buying process and the selling process. And you know what happens, Mark? Like 95% of the time, they answer in the sales stages. Almost nobody says, I'm involved with helping the buyer understand their business needs. I'm helping them with solving their, finding funding. I'm helping them with implementing a solution that's going to give them payback. And it's not trivial because everybody all of a sudden goes, oh, wow, I should think about that. So I've taken this whole thing, and the way I'd encourage everybody to think about it is, first of all, it's not just a linear process. So the buyer doesn't start at one point and exit at another point. If it's done correctly, from a sales perspective, we should be circling back around again. So whenever the buyer is engaged with something, that gets a circle for us because it's expansion. It's helping them do things better. We might offer other solutions. So maybe we came in with a part of it and we see other areas that we can help with what they're doing. Same thing with the buying process. The buying process isn't just linear. The buying process is a circle. So the way I look at it is the buying process is a hub at the middle, and then around that is the sales process. And wrapped around that are two main concepts. One is solution enablement, and the other one is account management. And why that's important is because both of those start at hello. The very first time, whether it's a many mangoes AI reaching out and gathering information, whether it's an automated demo system that's providing information to somebody that, they don't want to talk to sales, right? 58 to 60% of the buying process is done not talking to anybody, but there's great information that can be gathered. That's all solution enablement. That happens way before we get involved in sales. And account management is needed in terms of recording what they were doing, why were they doing it, and then passing that along to whoever's the first contact. So that might be a BDR, it might be a AE, it might be an AM. Whoever that is should have the information available so they can continue what I call like that flywheel effect, so that we continue around that engagement, and that goes all the way through customer success. In fact, radical concept here, maybe customer success needs to be doing more of the quarterbacking or the overall process. Sorry, it's a US term, right? Overall process starting from hello to make sure that the client success is what we start with as the end in mind.
Yeah, no, I think but see, the thing that's so cool about what you're saying though is like, it is customer success is buyer centric, right? Like that's the whole point. It's like buyer centric mentality that we have to build. And, you know, from starting with that, knowing what the buyer is looking for, knowing what that customer's journey, what the end goals are, now the sales process becomes more aligned with the end of them getting what they want, because that's what they're trying to, the problem they're solving, right? So they have to know the problem they're solving, and then customer success is helping them solve that problem, right? They bought the product, they bought the service, whatever, to solve that. So I do think there's a misalignment in some companies. They still call it customer support, or, you know what I mean, which isn't probably bad, but to me, it's like, we have to produce some success here. Like they have to win. Like, where's the win?
Or more to the point, it's just this point solution that comes in at the end and kind of is plunked in there, and then they start asking the questions all over again. Like,
all over the guy. It's like, well, I talked to the sales guy. I went through all the. He knows all my pain points. Like, how did this not get communicated to you? Like,
exactly.
I've heard that. I've heard that journey so many times.
Yeah, and Mark, it breaks down two other at least levels from there, because one thing is, back to the point about the buyer, is it's got to be buyer centric, and there's a lot been written about that. Garen Hess, who's a good friend, you know, he wrote, "Selling is hard and buying is harder," and that's the start of the buyer enablement focus. Well, even from there, if you think about it, when it comes to what we're trying to do for the buyer, one of my partners that I work with, John Kerr, he runs Mastering Technical Sales. He's one of 3 major partners I work with. He has an expression that says, "Our solutions have no inherent value." By itself, our solution means absolutely nothing. The only way our solution matters is in the presence or the context of solving a business problem. So if we are only thinking about our stuff and pushing our stuff and trying to throw it up against the wall to see if it sticks, we'll be just maybe running on luck if anything actually goes through. When it comes to a buyer who's interested, and we get them to literally pull, that's our job, really, get them pulled, get them interested, because they know what this is going to do for them. Now our solutions are relevant. They have relevance. The other way that this works is, if you think about the buyer's needs as sort of a Venn diagram, and you think about our solution as a Venn diagram, the only place that there's value is where those two overlap. And how are they going to justify what they're doing? It's based on value. What are they going to count? You know, what are we counting on that they're going to see at the end of this is value. We have to look at their needs and our solution and where they overlap. And that's working with my partner who has the sales opportunity snapshot methodology, Steve Bistritz. And our job is to make that overlap as big as possible, but driven by the buyer's needs, not driven by all the great things we think we can offer. And a number of your speakers have said that already. It's not about us. It's about them. Once we flip that around, now we can turn it from a sell into a buy, and we turn it from a push into a pull. And that's golden. Now, and that's what we want for them. We want mutual success. We're not trying to impose anything on anybody. That's no fun.
Right. Yeah, no, that's for sure. No, I appreciate that perspective. And I think, you know, and it's been said, and it's a management principle, you know, beginning with the end in mind. And I think that customer end is how we drive that customer success. And so outlining that ahead of time makes a lot of sense. If there was one other, we have like just a couple minutes left here. We get to our next speaker and end our marathon here shortly. But as it comes down to it, what's one thing you can pass on as kind of an experience that you've seen, that you've done, that in a quick short story that you have, that, you know, you've driven some success for a customer?
Yeah, well, one level down from this is the sales and pre-sales person. So in most high-tech sales, you have a salesperson that's primarily responsible for working with the business decision maker and the business close. You have a technical salesperson, whether it's a sales engineer, solution architect, whatever, all the flavor of names. And the reality is that too often the salesperson feels like, okay, I'm going to line up a demo or a presentation. I'll get my technical salesperson to show it, and everything's going to be wonderful, and we're going to make tons of money. And this goes back to what somebody said earlier about qualifying out. I remember an experience that a relatively new sales rep had asked me when I was running a team to bring my A game because they had just procured a meeting with Smiths Aerospace, which was a $23 billion supplier of avionics to the aircraft industry. And this was going to be a huge deal, and we only have one shot at this, and all the typical, placations of trying to make this demo happen, right? And I said, Jerry, you know what? I'd love to do that for you. I think, if they have 3 or 4 days, we could show them everything we have. And, we both kind of laughed to realize that's not realistic. So what I said is, let's sit down with them and let's figure out what's going on. Let's do discovery, just good old fashioned discovery. And we did that. And we were talking with them, working with them. Randomly, the CIO of the company walked by, which we didn't expect. He popped in the room and he saw us talking with them and collaborating and sharing ideas as opposed to selling. And he grabbed a whiteboard marker and started marking some stuff up about things to care about and what not to care about. And I'm happy to say this went on a couple different times. We developed a really good picture of what that client was about, qualifying ourselves in terms of what we can really do for them. And we wound up with tons of business out of that. It was, like a 7-figure deal to start with, and it just went on from there. Lesson learned, had we gone in and just shown the demo, throw our stuff against the wall, we probably wouldn't have ever won that deal. And by the way, they already had looked at other competitors and they were about to decide. We got in at the last minute. So it just shows you could slow the process down. And what we did was we got involved way into their process, past even thinking about other alternatives. We helped move backwards in the sales, in the buying process to find out what were they thinking that got to this point. So that's, I think, a really big success story for both sales and for pre-sales, how to work together. Oh, and by the way, one of the reasons the sellers have a problem is because the client doesn't inherently trust us. They just don't. They trust pre-sales. So working together as a team is where you can increase client success, increase ARR, and increase your not only commissions and revenue.
That story is perfect, though, because it really highlights the point of making sure we're not just there to show our product, right? Mm-hmm. It's that's the building the trust. If you come in and just show your product, I almost don't trust you. You know what I mean? Because you didn't listen to me, you didn't understand my issues, my problems, right? And it's hard to get to that point, but I think that's where all of us are trying to live, in that consultative way. So appreciate it, Art. And if you want to learn more about Art's sales development programs and his team approach, feel free to reach out to him. We're going to have more information that we're going to pass out a little later, and we'll have follow-up information on Many Mango's LinkedIn page.
Yes, Art, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And by the way, I have a book coming out at the beginning of August that describes all of these things. So it's
nice, awesome. You'll definitely have to get nice. Make sure Isaac gets that, and we'll definitely be a part of helping you promote that on the Many Mango process here.
He's all over it. Thank you so much. And thanks, Isaac, too. All right, Mark. Take care.
Thanks. Bye now. All right. Tor.